Okay, let's start. Good morning, everyone. It's 9:30, so the Calixed and JMAP joint session is starting.
If you haven't yet joined Meet Echo, please do that with either your device or on your phone. The QR code's now disappeared from the screens, but I believe there's one on the microphone, or you can just search it up in the agenda and click the link there. Do you want to read that off?
Sure. Well, as with all sessions, we're going to start with the note well, which reminds everyone that of responsibilities with respect to intellectual property rights and behavior in the meetings, that you need to disclose patents and patent applications that you're aware of. The meeting is being recorded, and the records may be made public, and privacy statement and so forth. We hope that you've read all of these things and are aware of them, but we're going to remind you about them anyway.
Yeah, the IETF gets rights to everything you say in this room.
Right. And the second slide here has to do with code of conduct, anti-harassment, and that sort of thing, to remind people that we do have standards for that. And if you feel like you're being harassed, there is an ombuds team that you can engage with in order to address any concerns that you have there. Please do log into Data Tracker using the QR code that has inconveniently disappeared because of the slides, but is at the back, and you can just log into Data Tracker and search for this session. We will be using the mic queue feature of the tool in order to manage any questions in the queue for questions and so forth. And please keep your audio and video off if you're not intending to actually share that. And I think everyone's seen that. Here's the agenda.
Yeah, so if anyone has anything they'd like to change on the agenda, please let us know. We've put CalX first. Both of our working group chairs, working group area directors, these two working groups have different area directors. Both of them have clashes for this session. They're both going to pop in at some point. So if you have any questions for the area directors, we will save them up and we will mob them as they come in the door and harass them with any questions that we've come up with. So this is roughly each of these sections in order is the older documents, the stuff that's further in the process, and then getting through to anything that's stalled and any other business or new suggestions at the end of each session. But if we need to reorder anything, feel free to do that as well. And that's basically it. So if anyone has anything they want to add to the agenda, now's a good time to do it, or just pop it in as we go. We're a pretty small, friendly group.
Okay, so
all right. So let's start. Robert, did you want to start first? Do you want to share?
Maybe we start with the JS context slides.
Yep.
this is which set? JS Contact?
Yeah, JS Contact. There's a clicker here.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you can just, give control to that.
Okay.
All right, JS Contact. The clicky thing doesn't.
Not clicking yet.
I'm not sure. Maybe I'm clicking the wrong thing, but
No, it should be working.
should I?
Do you want to get
Well,
Jim to just click
Yeah,
through,
yeah.
please?
Just
I'll be the
put the
backup
next slide,
clicker.
please. All right. There's two ongoing drafts, both of which are in working group last call, both of which also are
rather smallish documents compared to the ones we had been working on before within JS Contact. The one being is JS Contact profiles, which which basically is an IANA registry to define, to allow for protocols and other RFCs to define which JS Contact elements are supported within that profile, which basically is meant to motivate other working groups to use JS Contact, although they might not necessarily need all of what's defined in the JS Contact model within the Calyx drafts. There is one RFC in the regex working group making use of that already, which is an experimental RFC for using JS Contact within RDAP. Obviously, we made sure that the JS Contact profiles RFC, as it is defined, is works with their requirements with regards to defining profiles for JS Contact. If anyone else of you is considering using JS Contact in contexts outside of JMAP for address books, for example, you might want to have a look at the JS Contact profiles draft to see if it's working for you, or if you would see something missing. The other ongoing draft is the JS Contact UID draft. That's a very, very small draft. All it does is that it makes the originally defined mandatory UID property in a JS Contact card to be optional. That's required because in vCard it is optional, and we came to realize that converting between vCard and JS Contact otherwise can lead to inconsistent data if you start using on-the-fly generated UIDs for referring to that card within the group members property, or if you relate cards to each other. We originally had it defined to be mandatory, basically by mistake, because we were very much looking at it from the perspective of vCard, CardDAV, and JMAP for calendars, and did not consider other use cases equally enough. Changing that, luckily, is simple. We have this RFC in last call. The only thing is that due to this being a breaking change, we need to bump the major version of JS Contact. But I guess that's the thing we have to accept. Maybe if you have a look at that too, but I think it's straightforward. Next slide, please. So next step is we would like to finish working group last call for both of these documents. Both of these working group last calls are scheduled to be finished within that week, probably even today. I haven't checked my schedule. And other than that, the only thing that I see that we might be doing within JS Contact for the foreseeable future is to adapt RFC 9555, which defines how to convert between vCard and JS Contact, to redefine that in a way that it uses the same conversion scheme than the one that we are defining currently in the JS Calendar iCalendar for iCalendar, obviously, because we think it would be beneficial for developers not to have to implement two different conversion schemes, but use the same one for both data formats, since they are so similar. That's it for JS Contact. Any questions or remarks? Great. Then I say we switch to JS Calendar, please.
Yeah. The working group last call finishes tomorrow. Haven't seen any response on the list, so it'd be fantastic if you could hop on the mailing list, say, yes, I agree with this document, so that we have some evidence. Thanks.
All right, JS Calendar. There's a bit more to report there. Next slide, please. We have 3 ongoing documents. The new kid on the block being the first one, JS Calendar BIS, which hopefully will also make it out of the last call as the first one. JS Calendar BIS is reduced scope. It obsoletes the original JS Calendar RFC 8984, or is meant to obsolete it. It reduces the scope considerably. because it reduces the scope of JS Calendar basically to everything that's already defined in iCalendar, with some caveat I will come back to later. It's basically the result of the ongoing RFC JS Calendar iCalendar that I'm working on, which defines how to convert between JS Calendar and iCalendar. While I'm writing this document, I'm also implementing it, and during the implementation, I ran into that many quirks and uncertainties and ambiguities that I considered that no other developer should have to do that. And I also think it might even harm adoption of JS Calendar, because it was really a pain. The third document is the iCalendar JS Calendar extensions. That's basically also a byproduct of the JS Calendar iCalendar document, in the sense that it defines new iCalendar elements that are present in JS Calendar but not in iCalendar. Yeah, let me just check. I think that's it. Next slide, please. So some more about JS Calendar BIS, because it kind of came out of the blue after last IETF, and we already in working group last call for this IETF. So what you see here is not to scale the scope of elements that are defined in iCalendar and the original JS Calendar RFC 8984. We had elements that are common to each other. That's obviously the ones we aimed for, to maximize those. Then we still had a bunch of iCalendar only elements, most of them on purpose, like there is no free busy or other and other components. We basically reduced the scope for calendaring of JS Calendar to tasks, so to-dos and calendar events. But then we also had quite a bunch of JS Calendar only elements. And the worst was we had elements that had like that kind of had the same semantics, but not really. And these were a real pain. Like, we obviously do not want to have something like that. To give an example, most of them are, so for an example, a JS Calendar participant could be related to one location, but it could only be related to exactly one location, and that location was scoped to the complete event, whereas in iCalendar, the event publishing RFC later defined a participant to be related to multiple locations, but those locations are only related to that participant. And these were all seemingly minor differences, but if you want to convert it, it gets really hard to make sense out of it. And so we considered this has to change. Next slide, please.
The clicker is not doing its thing. They brought us a new clicker, but it's not helping. All right, back to manual control.
Okay, so JS Calendar BIS, as you can see, is much cleaner. Basically, we still have stuff that's only defined in iCalendar. That's fine. But all the stuff that iCalendar and JS Calendar BIS share are semantically equivalent, and that's what we really wanted to get at. When I say common elements, there are two new iCalendar elements. I will present them on the next slide. Basically, oh yeah, let's just go to the next slide. Sorry, I heard next slide. Yeah, right. Yeah, the new iCalendar elements are really, these are the only two ones we are defining. I'm really happy about that. It basically means that JS Calendar BIS as it is more or less compatible with existing iCalendar definitions. The first one that we defined, we really should have defined for iCalendar anyway, a long time ago. It's just something that now comes along with JS Calendar, which is we deprecate the geo property, which was defined definitely in 5545. I think it even was defined already in the earlier iCalendar version 2245, which consisted of two floats representing latitude and longitude of coordinates. Whereas a few years after those RFCs got published, we got RFC 5870 defining a common URI scheme for geolocations, and that's really what we should go for. So yeah, this RFC we are defining is deprecating the coordinates property and is deprecating the geo property and replacing it with the coordinates URI value property, which uses geo UARTs for better fidelity and compatibility with other protocols and applications. The only other property that we need to introduce is also quite a minor thing. It's the show without time property. Probably that would have gone into iCalendar sooner or later anyway too. It basically indicates to the client that even if you have a time-bound event, say the typical example brought up when this show with time property was defined originally always was like a mall doing some, I don't know, event or sale or whatever, basically the whole day. But that mall obviously is located at a specific geographically location, so it is bound to a time zone, but it still should like be represented as an all-day event and not be a block on the calendar. So basically the show with time property indicates to the client how to render the property. It's purely indicative, and we do not foresee any compatibility issues. It definitely has absolutely no impact on the temporal properties of a calendar object. Next slide, please. So getting to the conversion, we can pretty much convert every, let's say, sane iCalendar data between JS Calendar and iCalendar. There is only a very few edge cases that we do not support. One of them is preserving custom iCalendar time zones. We think that's fair. We really do not want to support custom time zones in JS Calendar. And speaking of experience with existing iCalendar systems, they do not want either. So we do not make room for that in the conversations RFC. Secondly, there's only a minor, like a really edge case where we cannot transfer fully all information that's available in iCalendar to JS Calendar. And that is if you have extension parameters on properties like categories and keywords, which might occur multiple times in the iCalendar data with multiple values and different X parameters, but they all basically convert to the same multi-valued property in JS Calendar. So we can preserve the information, but we cannot preserve the structure of the iCalendar in that case. Other than that, we seem to be really able to convert iCalendar and JS Calendar back and forth, and keeping its structure. So I think that's fine. If you see issues with the does not support bullet points, please let me know. Maybe we can work something out. For time zones, I'm less optimistic. For the property parameters, there certainly will be solutions, and I was thinking about a couple of them, but all turned out to make the conversion code so complex that I think it's not, that again, it might inhibit people from implementing it for edge cases that really are not relevant in practice. If you have other opinions, let me know. Next slide, please. All right, next step. So the very next step is to finish working group last call for JS Calendar BIS. I think the schedule ran out for that already. We really should get that unblocked. So we really should get that finished so that it unblocks the JMAP for calendars RFC in the JMAP working group. And until next IETF, I expect to finish the other two documents concerned about converting between iCalendar and JS Calendar. That's it for my presentation. Any question or remarks on JS Calendar?
Hey, thank you.
Hi, thank you for doing it. I'm just wondering if we could summarize the feedbacks for JS Calendar BIS and maybe JS Contact, but I don't know if CalConnect is also reviewing those documents. I mean, have they reviewed the document? Have they provided any feedback? Did you had interoperability somewhere testing or?
The short answer is no. The slightly longer answer is the one person I know who is both active in CalConnect and IETF besides us is Mike, and he's reviewed it and
Okay.
yeah.
I see.
Yeah, at least he's definitely given his support for deprecating the geo property. I need to check my notes for the rest of the document.
Anyway, I'm sure if you disagree, we will hear him.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Robert. All right. What have we got next for Calext?
ITIP series people.
Yeah, so we had the two documents that were with ISG. We've got iCal tasks and subscription upgrade. Ken, did you have anything you wanted to say about the status of those two?
Ken Murchison. I don't have anything to say specifically about TAST. I think that's currently in working group last call. I've seen some feedback on that. I'm not sure what the timing of the end of that is, but as far as subscription upgrade goes, the folks in the HTTP working group, especially Nottingham and Martin Thompson, and Julian Reschke for that point, or for that matter, had some feedback on subscription upgrade, saying that there's probably better ways to do that. They also hinted at the fact that there might be an effort in that group to come up with a generic fetching of diffs mechanism. Bron told me after the reception that we shouldn't wait on that effort, but we should still go back and re-architect subscription upgrade to use better HTTP mechanisms. So I'll relay that point to Mike, and I'll work with him if need be.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, they said it'd be great to get a perfect solution, but that's not going to happen soon. So I think having a look at some of those responses, some of them were just, why are you defining this new mechanism? And the answer is because that's what CalDAV does, and we're just copying it. So I think in some respect, just replying to all the feedback would answer a lot of that. Looking at the status of tasks, it has one security nit, which is just saying it should reference a new RFC because it deals with links in the security consideration. So I think that should be fairly quick to get done. So we'll just ping Mike about that. All right, so that's our two documents that and it's in IETF last call. It's already finished with the working group tasks. So I think tasks we should be able to get done pretty quick. Subscription upgrade, we'll see. There are also 3 expired drafts: ITIP participants, VPOL, and iCalendar series. Do we think we're going to get anything done on them anytime soon? Just leave them expired? Anyone? Thanks, Robert.
Robert Stepanek. So for the ITIP participants, I just want to note in a previous IETF meeting, I gave my support for that document. Now, after having worked on the JS calendar iCalendar conversion document, I'm not entirely convinced that we should be doing that. That's if we are doing that, then I think yeah, I would be very interested in the reasons or in the explanation how to deal with legacy clients in that regard. So yeah.
Yeah, I think part of the goal was to use that for VPOL, but maybe Ken.
Yes, as far as series and VPOL goes, those are kind of Mike's babies at this point. And I'm looking at my clock; it's like 3:30 in the morning. So even though Mike's likes to be up late, I doubt he's online at this point. I haven't looked. My gut feeling is maybe we should park all three of these for the time being and focus on the JS calendar, JS contact stuff, and the two drafts that are already with the ISG, and then we can resurrect these when we've got more bandwidth.
So to maybe make my previous comment more precise, my concern especially is about using participant-only ITIP scheduling for V events. So basically for using them within the existing calendar scheduling workflows.
Yep. All right, thank you. That is everything that we have at the moment on the agenda for CalExt. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about in the CalExt section of this meeting? No. Do you want to unshare your slides for a second, and I'll pull up the working group docs, see if this works. All right. So this is our complete list of documents at the moment. We've got the JS Calendar, iCalendar extensions, JS Calendar, iCalendar, JS Calendar BIS, which is currently in working group last call. And I think, Daniel, you had the buttons on that one.
Which one?
JS Calendar, iCalendar BIS.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to need to have a shepherd for this. Would anybody like to be the document shepherd?
For the BIS, I can be.
Cool. How many Daniels are there in here?
Very popular.
All right.
Maybe search on last name.
Isn't it ridiculous? All right, I'll do that afterwards. And that will submit that. Cool. And then, yeah, subscription upgrade is there. And then we've got the about milestones, which is what we always do here. Let's edit milestones button go on. All right, submit calendar series document. We're not going to probably do that. JS contact profiles is done. Submit JS calendar mapping will happen. VPOL, we're going to, let's just delete these. They're not going to happen anytime soon. We can come back and add them later. Submit JS contact UID and ISG happens this month. Is there anything else I'm missing here? JS calendar BIS to ISG.
Maybe it's August.
Sounds good. There it is. Yeah, maybe we should make these ones August as well by the time actually. It'll look like we're good because we'll have them done by next time. I think that all looks good. Okay. Done. All right, moving across to the JMAP part of this.
What's first, brother?
So, yeah, why not? File node's me. Cool. All right, next slide, please. So the basic goal of the file node extension is to match what WebDAV or SFTP does to allow you to access files stored on a JMAP server. Looking at Fastmail's server, the only extended property we found that wasn't supported by standard WebDAV was modified time. There's about 5 different versions of modified time that different clients decided to store as a dead property on the server. So there's tons of different variants upon modified time. We definitely want to have a standard way of doing that. And basically what I did in the first draft of this was just mirror what Fastmail's file storage API does, which we allow you to access your files through our web interface. And that uses a JMAP-ish but custom protocol that we'd like to make a standard one instead. Next slide, please. I made these slides way too big. So there's discussion of what we need for access control. The basic thing is basically POSIX style may write, may read. You certainly need some kind of may admin to allow you to change permissions for other people. Do we need a may execute flag is a question. If POSIX has the executable bit that's set on files, and if you wanted to map directly to a POSIX file system, that would be handy. Probably a may create child on folders, different from may edit, to allow you to basically the same way that we've done with folders in JMAP Mail. And the other question is, should they be recursive? And my proposal is that each node has its own ACL on it. But if you just pass null for the share width, then it copies whatever the parent has. So that makes it easy to administer, but still you manage each node individually. That's kind of the JMAP style, is to be explicit generally. And if you want to copy something, then you specify it during the create command. And stuff doesn't tend to apply. But if we could go to the next slide. Oh, no, not yet. Are directories and files enough? Do we need symlinks? Is there any other special type of node that we should be supporting beyond just files and folders? It's mostly collections and resources in WebDAV, but there's lots of special flags on things as well. And so it's a question of what we need there. All right, next slide. With the changed tracking in JMAP, do we want to say that a folder is changed when you change the names of files or the contents number of files inside them? That is something that in the POSIX inode type of thing, an inode is changed when you change the directory listing inside it, or is it more the node itself that changes? And also, how do you handle invalidation of full path? If you want to know the path to a node, if you rename or move one of its parents, what does that do? Does that mean you have to invalidate the cache on every single node underneath it? It's rare enough in mail that you can just invalidate all the child mailboxes, but that might get obnoxious with files if directories are moving around a lot. So I don't know what we want to do there. These are the open questions on this. I don't have answers to these yet. I can specify something, but I'd like to know how people want to use it. All right, next slide. For blob diffs. I think this is something that's really quite important to do if you want to have a remote file system. If you change a large file, you don't want to synchronize the full content every time. We need some kind of binary diffing thing. I've looked at the RDiff, adding something to the blob draft to allow you to get an RDiff status on it. But also we could use just a binary diff. There is an RFC describing how to generate binary diffs in the IETF. So having a way to support using that, and basically you'd say, from this blob ID, apply this patch, you should get a new blob ID, and then use that. With that, we should be able to create a pretty efficient remote file system on top of JMAP. And on the next slide, I think I said I'd like to have open source clients for the large file storage APIs that are out there. Most operating systems have a decent remote file storage situation now. If we could get that set up. Also, I haven't looked at Open Cloud Mesh that came up in dispatch yesterday, but I think we should look at that and whether JMAP files can be integrated into that somehow so that a JMAP file provider could be accessed from Open Cloud Mesh. Next slide. Like I said, I made far too many slides for this. There's a question of generic metadata, and I think this is probably one of the bigger questions because this is something that came up in JMAP right at the start, and we decided not to try and have too much just generic key value metadata to allow clients to do things, because what you wind up with is every client uses its own name and its own format for things. If we can standardize a format, we'll get better interoperability. The downside is servers have to move first. You can't add a new feature in a client until the server supports it. So you wind up doing things like putting a .ds store file in the file system because you don't have a way to store metadata. So maybe we need to do something. I think, Mara, this was something we wanted to talk about possibly as a separate item at the end of this. But do we want to have any generic metadata capability within files itself? Do we do just a more generic metadata for JMAP objects that's available for every object, and you just have a way of storing data alongside it? I think that's a question we should spend some time on at the end of this session. In terms of next steps for file nodes, I'd like to get some implementation experience. I'd like to have a couple of servers, a couple of clients before we publish it, but it would be good to get moving on that. Hopefully by next IETF, I'll have at least a server, a client, a Fuse implementation, possibly one of the other operating systems if I can learn how to program on their environments, or if someone else wants to spend some time doing that, that would be awesome. I think that's everything. Is there another slide? There's one more slide. Yep, that's what I said, basically that. Make sure it's complete, performant enough, add the diffing format and test that out. And I'd like to get this done, hopefully later this year or early next year. Thanks. Any questions?
Arndt, I happen to know that JMAP already has support for files. Like people send each other files in attachments.
Yeah.
You didn't mention integrating those two things so you can see the attached files in a file manner rather than going through the mail. But that's something that I would very much want.
Yeah, okay. So having the blobs that are in mails viewed in some kind of file system view instead.
And without there being another JMAP style extension on top of the extension.
Yeah, okay. I will take a note on that and look at how it could be done.
Look at hey.com.
Yeah.
So we're going to use the queue control, and Hans-Jörg is next.
Hi, this is Hans-Jörg. Question, Bron, because talking about implementations, how much is that already implemented on the Fastmail side? I mean, is it like on the state of the
It's
draft?
fully implemented with different object names than what's in the spec. But it works pretty similarly to, I basically went through and filed off the weird Fastmail bits.
All right. And yeah, short remark. I mean, I told you already we have that wrapper for some whatever it was. I need to look it up. Web-based file storage system, which we used in the past, based on an early version of what Fastmail did.
Yep.
So certainly we can do some updates on that to make it up to date.
Awesome.
With the current draft.
That'll give us a couple of implementations on the
and
server
we actually
side.
have the client side thing as well, because we use that, so some Java code on that side.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
And then Neil remotely.
Oh, did you get in the queue?
Yeah.
Okay.
I certainly did.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to respond to Arndt's question point. It sounds superficially like this is related to the email kind of attachments, but actually this is an entirely different thing. What you're asking for is a perfectly reasonable thing and would be quite easy to do as a separate data type, but this is more about inodes, essentially, if you think of it like that. It's about you attaching blobs to a file hierarchy, whereas your attachments in email are, well, they're attached to the emails, and so they wouldn't have a separate file hierarchy. And you could totally have a view that views the blobs within an email with a different data type, and I've sketched one of those out before. Haven't implemented it, but I also like the idea. But I would just say there's a completely separate bit of work to this, even if they sound similar at first glance.
Okay. So if you want to have support for OCM baked into JMAP, you would need to keep track of shares to files and things like that. So a remote participant, a remote receiver of the files. I don't know if you want to do that, or you could certainly use JMAP files as a storage or transport protocol for Open Cloud Mesh. So we're quite protocol agnostic, but mostly we use WebDAV at this point.
Yeah, we do have the ability to have multiple accounts and to share with accounts, but I don't know whether it's complete enough, the standard JMAP sharing. I haven't read the specification yet. I only saw it yesterday and I haven't had a chance yet to go through it, but I'm keen to understand how they might fit together in either direction.
Interesting.
Yeah, thanks. All right.
That's it.
Anything else? Let's move on then. Thank you.
So here's the agenda.
Yep. So let's bring up Neil's JS calendar, the JMAP calendars. It's called JMAP-calendars, I think, right at the end. Yep.
That one, okay.
Cool, Neil. You should be able to pass him control.
Yeah, sorry, I just try to switch camera, but can't work out how. Never mind. Oh, this camera will do. Okay. Do I have control of this? Yeah, it looks like it. Great. So JMAP calendars had gone through all of the last calls, IESG review, and was with the editor when we got to JS calendar changing with JS calendar bis. And given JMAP calendars is built on top of JS calendar, we had to pull it back because the last thing we want is to release the standard based on a data format that's immediately obsolete. So what we've done is pull it back, and I've published a version 23 a few months ago or weeks ago, which basically updates it to reference the new JS calendar bis document, and then makes the changes that are required based on that. So the ITIP scheduling kind of uses the new properties that are defined in JS calendar bis and removes any reference to the properties that we've deprecated there, and now kind of maps straight to iCalendar and kind of CalDAV. So it should be easier for people to implement, which is nice. And there are some properties that are no longer defined in JS calendar, like use default alerts, that are defined in JMAP calendars instead, because they make more sense. There's no such, you need to know what default alerts are, and that's kind of part of protocol rather than just the data format on its own. So that's essentially what the changes are. I think this is still kind of ready to go. As I said, it's all been reviewed before. That it's just changing to match the data format changes. So in terms of next steps, I think I'm not quite sure what we do from here in terms of the current status. I guess maybe it should go to working group last call again. I don't know if it needs to go through the whole review process. This is where an AD or someone with more experience in the process might be able to help advise what should happen. It should go together with the JS calendar BIS document, I think, so that they go through together to be published. So that's what I think the current status is. Anyone got questions, or anyone know what the right process would be from here?
Yep. Mara, go ahead.
Hi, Neil, it's Mauro, the General. Yeah, I meet you.
Point the microphone up a little bit, please.
Okay. So I wanted to briefly talk about what we discussed on the mailing list, so we can close that topic, and about the this permission to add invitations, because like you wrote on the mailing list, that on Fastmail you have your own setting to control that. And when I implemented CalDAV scheduling, I also had to enable that setting when using a proprietary API. And the problem, since Stoware is being used by different companies, providers, and all that, not everyone is using the control panel, the web admin interface that comes with the server, and so they end up implementing this setting on their own clients or management interfaces all over. So that's why I think it's necessary to add like something to let the user give consent about that setting, which is part of the permission model of JMAP calendar. But yeah, on the other hand, we've been living with CalDAV scheduling for so long, so I mean, it's not like it would be nice. Something would not be nice to have, but if not, that could be fixed later by some other extension.
Yeah, I think it is actually mostly separate. I don't think integrating it with the kind of internal sharing is the right way to go, because often, like, so the share with property, for example, you need a principal to share with, and principals generally representing entities within your organization. You could introduce pseudo principals and things like that, but I think that's overcomplicating it. Also, that would then be sharing on the individual calendar basis, whereas normally what you're actually doing is I, as a person who may have multiple calendars, accept invitations from these people, and this is the calendar you should put them on. So I don't think that's the right kind of way of mapping it. I emailed earlier today, just show you what we do internally at the moment, which is kind of a singleton preferences object where you can specify each account has one calendar preferences object, and it can say, yeah, which calendar to add stuff to and whether to process stuff automatically. The difficulty to me is that it two things. Firstly, that it is kind of intersects mail, contacts, and calendars, because often the permission is based on contacts, and this is about applying actions to email you receive, and it's applying to your calendars. So it's kind of a weird thing that encompasses multiple different other components. And the other trouble is whether, if we specify something, it can be implemented, whether it's compatible with what people have already implemented, because if it's not, then people often won't do the standard. That was the trouble we ran into with rules. Lots of people would like the JMAP kind of rules for making it easier to specify mail rules rather than just kind of civ. The trouble is the way everyone does rules is different, and so coming up with an object-based thing that would be compatible with different services, as so far we've not managed to do that. So I guess in terms of what we could do, have a look at the calendar preferences thing, see if that kind of model you think would work. And if so, I don't know whether it should go in here or whether it should be separate. I think it should be at least a separate capability. I think it would be fine to be a separate spec, but we could try and put
Yeah.
it in with JMAP calendars too.
Yeah, that it's yeah, that is something that we were talking about on the modern email matrix about a different extension to configure different aspects of the server. So perhaps it could be a JMAP extension to configure like any setting like the language, default language and stuff like that. So perhaps it could go there as a JMAP for settings extension, let's call it. That in that case we could merge calendars and contacts through there. Yeah.
I think that model could work. Yeah, this is always the hardest kind of thing to standardize, just because the settings are where the edge cases that are different between all different services generally, and so it's hard to make something that works for everyone.
Yeah. But I think it's necessary to offer a way to for clients to configure account settings in a server, because each one is like reinventing the wheel and using proprietary APIs for that. That's
I mean, or the clients send you to some, the server's portal for configuring settings, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yes, it's these tend to be things you touch once and then never again. So that's not the most important thing. But I get what it would be nice if there was a standard way to do it. I agree. Yeah. I guess let's continue this on the list. But do you have a feeling of what your preferred path forward with this would be?
No, I also realize that it's ready. I also would like to see JMAP for calendar be published. So I think what I would do is like we'll keep discussing this JMAP for calendar scheduling extension, and then I will propose something for the settings. But this is an extension to manage server settings through JMAP.
We also use the same object to store preferences, like what's the default alert, not default alerts, that's on the calendars. What's the, you could store things like what's the default duration you should create events for? What are your preferences for various sort of things with the calendar? And, again, there's no end to how many of those you could add and different clients might want. I don't know, if we want to try and standardize some format for that.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, thank you.
Okay. No worries.
And I'll channel a couple of things from the chat from Alexei. He suggested you could perhaps have a targeted working group last call, as in ask specific questions to limit the working group last call scope. Just passing that on.
Yeah. Our area directors have walked in. Hello, thank you for coming. Sorry you got a clash on this session. We have a question with the JMAP calendars, which got pulled back from very late in the stage. We think it's ready to do another maybe targeted working group last call within this working group and then send it back to you. How does that sound?
Say JMAP calendar.
Yeah, you said, is this
one of us do one?
You two sorted out between you who's doing it. It is this is the JMAP working group.
Yeah. So yes, I believe we talked about this briefly at the hackathon. Yeah. So I think at this stage, any substantive changes we're making to these documents, even if they're just moving references around, I would feel a lot better if you do a second working group last call on any of the revisions for that. If you need help with the buttons or we're having document state issues, chat with me offline and we'll make it happen.
Awesome. I have a action bronze call targeted working group last call written in the notes, so I will do that today.
Is JS Calendar going to working group last call today? The BIS?
JS Calendar BIS has already completed its working group last call.
Oh, okay, then fine. Yes, let's do that then. Yeah.
To ISG.
Mauro, in particular, as you've been kind of looking at this a lot, I think recently you should review it and make sure you think it all looks good.
Neil said, could you please review the JMAP calendars during the working group last call? Great. All right, and I think we have Neil again. If we could switch slides. Oh, we should. Neil probably could have changed the slides himself. All right, that's all right. Let's share email delivery push notifications. And pass it over.
All right. Okay. So the main change since last IETF is just that the draft's been adopted by the working group. We put out the call for adoption after that last IETF. This is really quite a simple document, just as a reminder of kind of what it is and the motivation. JMAP has kind of push built in, but generally it's edge triggered just state changes so that you can go, oh, that state's different to my state. I'll resync with the server. JMAP Mail does have a basic kind of special push, but only when a new message has been delivered rather than just any change to my email, like marking it red or archiving or whatever. But the trouble is that on mobile platforms, iOS in particular, there's very strict requirements that push notifications are only sent when you're going to show a message, an actual notification to the user, because they don't want you pushing lots of silent notifications, waking up the battery for no apparent change to the user. So this means this is doesn't really work. So instead, this document lets you specify a JMAP filter, so you can specify exactly which messages you care about, for example, just in inbox or in inbox and from my special friend, whoever, whatever. And you can also request specific properties be sent directly in the push so that you get a push more like this, type email delivery. And here I've requested the from subject and ID, and so that's all I get sent, but I get sent directly in the push. So this is everything I need to show a notification directly to the user. And that means that I can work within the constraints of these kind of mobile platforms. This is also just something that's useful, I think, for the way a lot of people want to integrate with JMAP push, where they don't care about syncing changes or anything like that. They just want to know about certain types of new emails and certain properties on them. And so they can do this and not have to do anything beyond process the pushes that come in. They never have to make any of that API changes. Because it's based on the existing kind of email get structure and email query filter type, as I said, the document's really quite simple. I think it's basically ready, but we need to get some implementation experience first just to make sure we haven't missed anything. So in terms of next steps, basically waiting for it to be implemented in at least one place, ideally at least two, so that we can check that it does what we think it will, and then we can submit to last call. Any questions or comments on that?
Who is going to implement it?
Well,
so
we will at some point.
Mauro says, yes, will do. We will at Fastmail as well, hopefully in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I think this is a really useful one. Certainly, we get a lot of requests for basically this. Anyway.
All right. That is all the active drafts that we had to discuss. Thanks, Neil. So we have on our agenda, there are 5 expired drafts: essential, portability, REST, SMIME sender, and tasks. Do we have anything we want to do on any of them? Hans-Jörg.
So this is Hans-Jörg. So I think the majority of those are on my list somehow, or stored due to me. I told in Bangkok that I will sit back and go through and probably prioritize them a little bit one by one. Based on that, we have recently doing quite some work in the task area anyway, so I would like to continue with that one particularly, also because I think that is probably the one that is most helpful in a certain way, or has the most broad usage, because the other ones, as you know, are a little more techy and partially for development and debug stuff. But I would probably also like to encourage people in the room regarding those other 3 drafts. If there's any interest in those and so on, I'm also happy to, work with people getting these done, because I think we were using them in certain cases helpfully, and that's why we brought them here. And so, yeah, at any time, maybe a little bit slower, we will then work on them once there's enough capacity. But unless somebody steps up and says, okay, I would really like to push forward on this soon, then we can probably give that a little bit more priority. That would be my take.
Cool. Thank you.
Alexei chimes in that he will pick up SMIME again. He didn't have cycles to work on it due to other IETF work.
All right. Thanks, Alexei. I was going to specifically ask you about that. All right. So it sounds like SMIME sender and tasks are the 2 out of this that are going to get some effort, hopefully by next IETF, do you think? Hopefully the CalX tasks is actually published by then, so we can reference it. I mean, we can reference it anyway, but at least we know it's locked in. All right. That is everything on our agenda. So we're up to the new work, generic metadata storage for clients. Do you want to speak to that at all, Mara? Yeah. Good evening, Pete.
Hi, okay, Mauro De Gennaro. So this is there's an extension we've been discussing called, well, there's no final name, but something like JMAP for metadata. It will be something like the web.dev properties. So it would allow clients to store metadata in basically any JMAP object. So this is needed for, we think, for different purposes. For example, for the file node extension, when, to avoid the metadata DS store files. And for example, I don't know, if you storing pictures, you could add, I don't know, other picture related metadata like the camera settings and so on, locations, etc., etc. And then also I've been discussing this with other JMAP implementers, client implementers, and they would like to store settings on the server, like their own account settings and so on. Then there was a person on the mailing list that was implementing a synchronization tool, and they needed to store the some information to help them synchronize with a remote CalDAV server. So yeah, it would be nice to have an extension to store any metadata on the object. Also, of course, there are many questions around that, like quotas, how to enforce quotas on that, where is that allowed, how to represent that information. But it's that is the main idea.
All right, thank you. Neil, I expect you have comments on this. Yeah.
So there's not a draft yet to read, right? Is that right, Aaron? This is just more floating the idea.
No draft yet.
Yeah, just checking out missed it.
Informal discussion.
Yeah. So did you was the idea you could add this to any object based on what you said?
Flexible on that. Mostly, it would. Sorry, I forgot to mention. It would also work like it would allow to add metadata like the IMAP metadata extension. So the idea is emails, the email object, the mailbox object, file node, and so on. So I haven't really thought about that in detail. So which objects should have these properties, but the general idea is to allow metadata on most JMAP objects, at least the core ones like email, calendar, and so on.
Yeah, I think that kind of thing can be a pain to implement, certainly efficiently. But I guess if it's an extension, it's optional, so that's fine. I would wonder, is the idea would be a single, like a particular property name, and then you have just like an arbitrary object underneath. You can put whatever JSON object you want under that.
Yeah, ideally would allow also nested JSON objects.
For sure. Yeah. Sorry, that is what I meant. The main trouble there would be different clients blatting each other if they, weren't kind of patching it properly. But then if you wanted multiple top level keys, then it gets awkward because now you've got arbitrary properties on the top level object, which would need a prefix or something. I don't know, that kind of namespace collision stuff will be one of the concerns I would have.
Yeah, no, I haven't thought about the details on how to design
Yeah.
that property, but yeah, perhaps it could reside under like an attribute called metadata, and yeah, but I'm not sure how I need to think about how to enforce like different namespaces, or well, how something like a namespace within JSON, or just let anyone change any property they like within the metadata object. Yeah, but then also patching is something to consider. But I guess the idea would be to have a metadata property, and under there, anyone could write their own properties there, their objects under that metadata object or property. Yeah.
I would say that, yeah, as I think Bron mentioned this earlier, that kind of pattern does tend to lead to both incompatibility because everyone's writing their own private thing, and then even worse, you get things like we've seen on the web where one client introduced something under their namespace, but another client wants to use it, but it wants to be compatible, so it uses the same namespace, and then you're kind of stuck with this property that should have been standardized and given a proper name and extension being /metadata/ Thunderbird / foo, and being used by a completely different client and all sorts of stuff. That's the other kind of concern with this kind of pattern, I guess.
Yeah. No, as I said, it's it's just something that it's some people need. Like there's a need for such extension, but we haven't discussed the details. Yeah, I understand there are some problems around implementing that, so there's something we need to discuss. But yeah, the general idea is allowing clients to store their data, but we haven't discussed the technical details, or there are no drafts or.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, there's other people in the queue, so I'll put out.
Yeah, I think if I was to I'll let Hans-Jörg go first. No, I was going to say if I was to do something like this, I'd probably make it, as you said, a hash with keys, and then possibly have those keys be in a first come first serve registry, so any client can specify it and register it with IANA, and then use keys under there, and that way
they won't though.
They won't. They'll just throw stuff in there. But then if it's getting common usage, we can notice and stick it in the IANA registry ourselves. I would probably want to make them a JMAP ID, so that restricts the namespaces.
So yeah, this is Hans-Jörg. Mauro, what I didn't fully get is, so you were proposing that as a whole thing, or because for me it's a little bit separate things, probably the preferences thing you mentioned versus the metadata on certain items, or you are not decided on that? Yeah, right. So it's not necessarily the same thing you have in mind as a solution for both, right? Okay. Okay, so I got that right. Okay. So short comment on both ones. So maybe first the preferences one, actually. I posted something in the chat. So some ages IETF ago, we presented something we did in a project for preferences on certain mail settings. So maybe that could be something to look at. It's not super elaborated, but we actually used it in practice as an extension to JMAP in some project. And regarding the item settings, so I have a little bit, I see Neil's argument with, of course, you might have, getting some kind of a wild situation with any sort of client adding some sort of metadata there. On the other hand, you can turn this argument, because there is some systems that do support such kind of stuff, most notably Microsoft Exchange. And that is used quite in quite a lot of circumstances, for instance, for referencing certain, like, let's say, contact items within other applications and so on. And this is actually something that's always a problem when you want to migrate away from that, because most other systems don't support these kind of things. Yeah? So there's no way actually to model that then in another paradigm. So that's probably an argument why this would be useful. It's probably also behind some of the use cases you were referring to. And if one would do that, I would really say it should probably be done in a homogeneous way, so on all items, and not just saying it's just for files and just for mails, just because we don't have an idea if it makes sense for context, because I think it would be much easier to grasp for people, and why not? I mean, yeah.
Moro, please go to so that Neil and other remote people can hear you.
You can come up here if you like.
Or, yeah, either way.
What I was saying is that this property, this metadata extension, will be like on the main top level JMAP object. It's not that we want metadata to be added to the delivery status of an email submission or stuff like that. So it will be at the root level. Yeah, the main JMAP objects. Yeah.
I have two remarks to the metadata idea. So the one is JS Calendar and JS Contact already do support custom properties, which are these domain and then column prefixed properties where you can put in basically anything. So if the idea is to also allow putting metadata into JS Calendar and JS Contact objects, then it would be great if you come up with a draft to give guidance on under which circumstances use the metadata approach you're proposing and under which circumstances use the existing vendor extension properties. The only other remark off the top of my head is that if you expect the servers to support searching for values within these properties, then we would need to come up with some kind of schema mechanism so that the server knows how to index the data. I don't know if you have thought in that direction already.
No, regarding the first thing you said about JS Calendar, the metadata on JS Calendar, and yes, the idea basically is to allow metadata to be added to the main object, to the calendar event object also, but I think what implementers were asking for is to add metadata to the calendar object more than the, but it should be possible, And then for searching, if we want to be able to offer search functionality, we need to either define some kind of a schema or do full text search, like just index the contents of the text nodes. That would be a quick fix. So the idea is, it will make the specification slightly more complex to have the structure search, or we can take, I don't know, inspiration from, I don't know, GraphQL, or then I don't know how, those search, Elasticsearch and Meilisearch perform the queries. So we could, something like that could be adopted, because they use a JSON query which I don't really like, but it's could do the job, for searching metadata.
I hadn't looked at those in a long time, but I think you're when you're creating these objects, you're creating you're not creating like a JSON blob. I think with the library, with the SDK you're using, you're saying this is a date time and this is a whatnot. So I think the server at that point might know, but I might be wrong on that. Anyway, I look forward to.
Sure. Those are things so the first idea of this metadata extension was something very simple, like the web.dev properties that you can store whatever you like, and there are no rules. But that is Wild West, so perhaps we need some control on what happens there.
And probably it's good enough without search anyway. So
yeah, but sure, should be considered. Yeah.
Who was next in the queue?
You.
Me. Excellent. Yeah, the way I was thinking we would do this would be to have under the capabilities object for this extension list which data types are supported. So you may not be able to store arbitrary metadata on every data type, but you could say I can store metadata on calendars, calendar events, email mailboxes, but maybe not on individual emails, something like that. You could have which object types allow you to store metadata and per object type quotas, that kind of thing, I think would be fairly easy to implement and fairly easy to describe.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I think maybe you should write this up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and the other one that we haven't discussed is the settings extension, but that is something I haven't even mentioned on the list, so that is something for later. Yeah.
We have 15 minutes, so go ahead.
Okay. So as a server implementer, the one issue I have with interacting with clients is that the clients need to configure different aspects of the server in a standard way. So of course different servers offer different APIs to manage their settings, but there's no standard way for clients to configure common known properties for different parts of it, not only emails or calendars and so on. One of them is the one we discussed for JMAP, who can add invitations to one's calendar. But then you have other stuff like, I don't know, the default language, the time zone. Those are ones that come to mind. Then encryption keys for encryption at rest, if you want to upload your open PGP key, or SMIME key for encryption at rest, something to manage that. And there are many other settings that would be nice to have. And some people even want their users to define aliases, to create their own aliases. Of course, they might agree or not that is a good idea, but would be nice to have an extension to allow those that functionality to be offered by servers to clients using a standard mechanism. Yeah, I don't know what are. Yeah, but once again, this extension just I haven't even proposed or one way it could be also replace the vacation response object. So you would use this, well, not replace or complement. You will be able also to set vacation responses using this extension. But yeah, that is something I will write a quick draft at some point. But if you have any feedback now, let me know.
We have Neil in the queue.
Okay.
Hi. Yeah. I could see this maybe working. I think if we defined a singleton preferences object and then just had a registry, because the initial spec can have a bunch of the keys defined for common things like time zone, etc., and then a registry to make it easy to expand, and possibly say you can use a namespace to add anything to it if you want stuff that's clearly just preferences for your client. We kind of have something similar at Fastmail. There's a singleton object type we call client preferences, and basically you can write whatever property you want to it. We don't have to register it in advance on the server, and it will save it and send it back in, so that as we add new preferences that only affect the client and not the server, we don't have to do anything other than just write to them and get them back. I could see something like that being potentially useful, and then standardizing keys with a registry and allowing namespace private keys.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, Ricardo told me that you had something like that because we discussed this idea briefly on the Matrix on the modern email group. Yeah. So it's something we can work on. I will send in some weeks. Well, first after JMAP for calendars is implemented, I will, because it's a lot of work.
Let's do that first.
Yeah. At some point, I will draft something up.
Yeah, cool.
So this is Hans-Jörg again. Again, I think this, I personally think this would be very useful. I mean, I see the argument Neil made earlier that this, of course, is not at the same scale as, people interact with whatever their address book or their mails. Just because you don't reconfigure your time zone that often or so. Yeah, but still, I think it's a very important thing because putting on my data portability enthusiast hat, that's also an issue if you switch to another provider, because typically these exact things are also, things you would expect to have, present at your new destination site, and there's in many systems no way to actually access or control them. Which then is a problem actually for the switch. So I think that alone would make it very interesting. Also from experience, so we do that as far as possible for various systems. I think there is actually quite some commonality, like as you said, like the user time zone and stuff like that. So we actually have some kind of internal list of these kind of things. And so I think there could already be a good bootstrapping list for some things that many vendors support, and that would make this very useful, I think.
Okay.
So I'm happy to help a little bit with that.
Okay, sure. Yeah. You're the expert in that area. Yeah.
All right. I've updated the action to say Mara and Hans-Jörg to write a JMAP server settings draft.
Okay.
You got a co-author.
Okay.
Congratulations. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Let's have a look at the milestones for this group then. Cool. Andy has left us already. I noticed in my emails we have a new working group area director for JMAP. Congratulations.
Hi, this is Ori Steele, your new area director. Andy and I were talking about this, and it just sort of made sense to have JMAP and Calyx under one hat for scheduling purposes in the future. So I look forward to serving you all.
Congratulations. Where's your hat?
I'm wearing it. Can't you see?
Hey. All right. We need a bunch of milestones. Adopt a document for JMAP metadata. When do you think we'll have that ready for? JMAP metadata. End of the year? Okay. Yeah, why not? December. Settings. I'm doing these ones first just because I remember them. Let's put this one middle of next year. We might get to it sooner. What else have we already got? Open draft, adopt file storage is there. Don't have plans to do anything yet with that. Don't think there's much to change, honestly.
You get a milestone back in April. Push filtering?
Adopt a draft for push filtering, that's done.
Ah, okay.
Submit JMAP tasks to ISG is done.
Should I raise something I just remembered about?
Yeah, hop up to a microphone.
Yeah, go the microphone. Yeah, I'm doing the cue.
That's fine. We don't need to stand on it.
One thing that I just remembered, this is not a proposal, just an idea. I don't know if this was discussed before, but an extension for OpenPGP instead of SMIME. I don't know.
Okay, as well as SMIME.
Yeah, in addition to.
Yeah. All right.
Because some yeah, some people feel more comfortable using OpenPGP, especially in the self-hosted community and so on.
Yeah, I think that's probably worth talking to Alexi about, trying to either do it together or make sure they're compatible at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. I'll add that to the notes in a second. Submit portability guide, submit REST. Obviously, they're not going to happen. Got portability extensions and guide and minimal. Yeah, okay, so those three were all going to happen here. Let's kick them off to next year. Or should we stick them on hold for now? Yeah, it looks like there's a resolved as on hold. Doesn't seem to offer a choice. You have to type it in, but that's okay. Do that then. REST mapping. Hold. Portability extensions. Hold. SMIME. Going to get back to, and tasks I think was going to be. There's tasks in here. No.
I thought I saw it go by there. There, right there.
Okay, submit JMAP tasks document to ISG. That's no, I was confused. It was Calix. That's not what we're going to do. That we'll push forwards to end of the year. Sweet. Glad we noticed. March next year. All right. Done. All right, we have 3 more minutes. Anything else before we finish up? Go ahead.
Jörg, once again. So one thing I missed to mention in the preferences thing, interesting point you made, Maro, like you have sometimes these different levels on which you can do a certain user setting, you know, so some, as you said, aliases, sometimes you can see in the control panel, sometimes you can do it on the user list. So that might be an interesting question also in that context, you know, if it's how it can be achieved. It varies very often. Yeah, anyway. And another thing, probably just as a question in the room, because we recently also stumbled on that, I think Fastmail doesn't have a notes or sticky notes feature, right?
Yeah, Fastmail has the sticky notes feature as
it is.
As a it's done as an email in reply to a particular email, and so it appears in the thread, but it has a special MIME type that makes it appear.
So it leverages the email concept more or less. Okay. So general question.
Neil can explain more.
Yeah, I designed it. No, it's not a MIME type. It's just a keyword. It's documented in the draft that Daniel and I have got going through MailMate at the moment. It's a $memo keyword, and it's in reply to the message that it's stuck on, if that makes sense. There were no custom extensions required at all for the way we implemented it. It's purely like JMAP mail base standard. That's it, just with the keywords.
This draft you mentioned, can you post it? I didn't get it. Can you post it in the chat? Or
that's just the keywords documents, the 2 keywords we use.
Okay.
Other than that, it's like Ron said, it's a standard email that happens to be in reply to the thing that it's stuck on.
Okay.
Did you have a question about it?
Sorry?
Or just you started with you don't have this, and we interrupted you before you actually got to what you actually.
Yeah. So I wanted first of all. Excuse me. I wondered first of all if this is something some people have on their mind, and I was in the mistaken impression that there was nothing like that last time I looked at Fastmail. But it's good to know there is, so I'll have a look at it and probably come back to it. Thanks.
Okay, PHP, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to alert folk to the. I went to Dispatch yesterday and I was told to bring my draft here, so I will be proposing it to here.
Yeah,
There was a brief mention of that before you joined the room here. So
yeah.
Oh. Excellent. That is everything for today. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we are exactly on time. Enjoy your break. See you in Montreal. Hey.
Can I borrow you?
Yeah, just a clicker. We
want me to put up some slides and pass?
Hello. Hi.
I think that's for
I've got the chair slides up.
The server automatically adds attachments from incoming message.
There, I gave the clicker control.
As file storage.
Oh.
Then these are the names by which BlaBla can be attached, if present. And then you have topics, position files,
okay.
like that.
Yep.
Great. This much text. Pretty much the
Yeah.
just so that
Mostly just one.
Yeah. That's pretty much what I was thinking too. And
excellent.
Yeah. Fine.
Okay, great.
Cool. All right.
Oh, no problem.
It worked fine.
We did fine. So. Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right. Cool.
Well, that went well. Whoops, I left and it left the slides.
Yeah, that's all right. That will close the meeting for the next one.
Yeah.
So the website the weakest of the day. And actually, it most the reason my wife has gotten intense. Right.
Hey. Great. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So will I. Cool. That's
Sorry, I hope I wasn't too hard on you about the queue thing. All right, good.
And if the server has is it
Try not to be too fussy about that, but we're starting to get a queue at that.
Yes, the only one we really had. That was cool. That's good to have him here.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, so my next trick is server, and then I submit